Welcome to Even Tacos Fall Apart, a podcast built to help break the stigma and start the conversation on a wide variety of mental health topics. I'm MommaFoxFire, and whether this is your first time tuning in or you've been listening for a while, this is your space to explore, connect, and feel supported. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to take a moment to talk about something a little timely. We're in the middle of January now, and this is a time that can feel like a turning point for some, but heavy for others. The post-holiday slump is real. Maybe you're feeling isolated after all the buzz of the holiday season, or maybe you're staring down those New Year's goals and feeling overwhelmed. If you're in that space, I just want you to know that it's okay to be exactly where you are. There's no rush to fix yourself, and it's okay to pause and breathe. Remember to extend some grace to yourself and others this month. Now, today's episode is going to shine a light on a therapy option that's gaining attention for its potential to heal trauma, MDMA-assisted therapy, specifically for PTSD. My guest, Jill Sitnick, has firsthand experience with this treatment, and she shares her journey with so much honesty and courage. If you've heard of MDMA, you might know it as Ecstasy or Molly, a party drug with a bit of a reputation. But MDMA, when used in a controlled therapeutic setting, is proving to be a powerful tool for people with PTSD, especially when other treatments haven't worked. PTSD isn't just a buzzword, it's a debilitating condition that affects millions of people. It can stem from a variety of experiences: childhood trauma, combat, accidents, abuse, and it doesn't just go away on its own. MDMA-assisted therapy is different from traditional talk therapy because it helps calm the brain's fight or flight response and creates a space for patients to explore their trauma in a way that feels safe. Jill's story is a testament to how this therapy can change lives, but it's also an important reminder that healing isn't linear or simple. In our conversation, Jill opens up about her own PTSD, how MDMA therapy worked for her, and what the healing process really looks like. It's raw, real, and deeply inspiring. She also provides practical advice on what this kind of therapy involves, how to find the right resources, and what steps you might take if you're curious about exploring it for yourself or someone you love. I'd love to hear from you. If you have questions, thoughts, or just want to say hi, please come find me on social media. I'm MommaFoxFire everywhere, or through our podcast website, tacosfallapart.com. Your engagement keeps these conversations going and helps us build a community that's open, real, and judgment-free. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, please take a moment to rate and leave a review or a comment. It helps so much in reaching more folks who might need this kind of space. Thanks for being here today. Let's go ahead and dive into my conversation with Jill and learn more about MDMA-assisted therapy for PTSD. Almost clicked the entirely wrong button, but that is okay. Hello. Welcome back to another Mental Health Monday here on Even Tacos Fall Apart. I am excited to bring you a fun conversation tonight that I think is going to be very enlightening, not only for myself, but also hopefully for you. This is something that I don't know a lot about, and I learned a lot about it while I was preparing for this, but I'm excited to talk to Jill Sitnick tonight. Jill, thank you so much for joining us to talk about MDMA for PTSD therapy.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited and I'm wide awake. On Monday night.
Yeah, if we need to stop and have you make coffee, just let me know.
I stopped up earlier. I should be good.
There you go. All right, well, let me tell y'all a little bit about Jill, and then we're going to dive into the interview. But y'all know the drill by now. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them into the chat, and I will make sure that we ask them while we are live and in action so that we can get them addressed. Try to keep it vaguely on topic, but if it's off topic and it's too far off topic, then we'll talk about it after we're done with this part of the stream. So get those questions in there and we'll make sure to ask them while we're live, especially if they're about MDMA and PTSD therapy as well. So Jill brings her unique perspective as a patient who healed childhood trauma-induced PTSD with psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy to demystify MDMA therapy for PTSD. With a career that has spanned teaching high school students, like kudos to you on that part, through working at Microsoft and Amazon, she has always been known as someone who can take complicated topics and make them accessible. By sharing the details of her treatment in her memoir, she provides readers with a raw and personal look into the transformative potential of psychedelic-assisted therapy. Additionally, Jill educates audiences with her YouTube channel, The Journey Sage, by providing practical wisdom on intention setting, integration practices, and working with journey guides to demystify the use of psychedelics to treat PTSD. As a patient voice, her story and educational content provide clarity to a confusing process for people new to psychedelics for healing. And I've got several different links for y'all if you are looking to connect with Jill. I've got website, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and also a link to the book and the memoir as well. And y'all know what I always say, engagement is king. So if you do go give her a follow, make sure you go through and like some of her posts and all that good stuff. And if you buy the book, make sure you leave it a 5-star review and all that good stuff. So again, Jill, thank you just for taking the time and being here.
Wow, talk about some call to action there. People got homework.
Yeah, hey, listen, I'm not a teacher, nor would I ever be a teacher because I don't have the strength for that. But I'm willing to give out homework when possible. Absolutely.
You just did it, girl. Go for it. Right.
So what do you enjoy doing? You said you've done all this stuff in your career. What do you enjoy doing when you're not busy sharing this particular part of your story?
Well, you know what? Unfortunately, I lost my dog last December, so my answer normally would have been walking my dog. My adult life, I've always had dogs. But I will tell you that I have joined the pickleball craze, the ridiculousness of it. I am taking lessons so that I am not the person on the court that everybody laughs at and wants to avoid. And I laughed at the whole pickleball thing when it first came out. I was like, that's ridiculous. But you know what? It is really fun. And even somebody like me who's not super athletic, like I'm not completely falling on my face. So right now, that is one. I even went out, I bought my own paddle. I bought pink little pickleball balls. That's my thing right now.
Nice. I've never played pickleball. Actually, the only things I know about pickleball are that my work sometimes has a team. And also on the show Tacoma FD, they played pickleball in an episode, and that's everything I know about pickleball.
I'm about 2 clicks above you, so I'm not that much further. But in about a month, I might have enough courage to actually try to play with other people.
Nice. I mean, I think the one through work is just very like chill and not super competitive, although I work with some very competitive people, so maybe it is. Who knows? I've never been to one of their games.
Bragging rights are very important.
Yeah. Yep. That is true. That is very true.
Yeah.
I am sorry for the loss of your dog. I know that losing a pet is really difficult. And yeah, walking and that ritual of walking your dog and everything, I'm sure that was really difficult to kind of give up. Do you think that you'll get another dog at some point just to get that back?
Oh, absolutely. I've had dogs my entire adult life.
Yeah.
I just find right now, I'm in a very unique situation being an advocate for this therapy and being able to work from anywhere and suddenly not having a schedule is very appealing. I adopted
Yeah.
2 ridiculous little parakeets to kind of make some life in the house. And they're super easy when I travel and want to get around and don't have a schedule. You throw a YouTube video on of parakeets, put them by the window, they're happy and can easily have people come in and uh, change their seed and water if I'm traveling. So that's right now they're goofballs. They make me laugh every single day. So they'll do now. But yes, at some point when I have a yard, there'll be another dog or two in my future. I'm sure of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Parakeets, I was just talking about this the other day. Birds are one thing that I haven't had. I've had all kinds of pets. I currently have all kinds of pets. Birds are ones that I have never had. My grandparents had a bird and he was a sweet cockatiel, the smaller ones, not the big, the little with like the red cheeks. Anyway, he was a good bird, but boy did he wake up so early in the morning.
Yeah. These are good. These don't wake up until I take the cover off their cage. So,
Gotcha,
um,
gotcha. Yeah,
you know
that's
what? They're
fair.
just delightful. Parakeets are always busy doing something and yet really not getting anything done.
Sounds like half of my day as a mom, so that's fine. Maybe I am a parakeet.
There you go. There you go.
I feel like going around the house sometimes it's like, oh, this is a mess. Oh, this belongs in this part of the house. Oh, this is a mess. Oh, this belongs in this part, and then nothing's gotten done, but I've spent an hour cleaning, and it's like it looks no
You've
different
moved a lot of things.
whatsoever. Yes, moved a lot of things for sure, for sure.
Yep, yep.
I'm sure that's not just me. Hopefully, it's not just me. Maybe it is. Whatever.
No, I think sometimes you're super productive cleaning, and other times it's like you've just moved a lot of things around.
Yes. Yep. That's how I feel most of the time. Do
Yeah.
you have a true
What
crime
do you pets
story?
do?
Oh yeah, of course, of course. I mean, look, like I said, I have all kinds of pets. I'm currently looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 8 pets in this room with me right now.
Oh my gosh.
And
Oh
there's
my
three
gosh.
more, there's 3 more right out there. And so it's yeah, I'm a big fan of our furry and not so furry friends. Furry, feathered, scaled friends. Oh, and there's another one out there too. I forgot. But anyway.
Aw,
Yeah.
that's nice.
So
That's nice.
pets are really important for your mental health, for your emotional health, for your physical health if you're taking them for walks, like all of it. They're very uplifting.
1000%.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Yes.
sure.
Yes.
Do you have a true crime story that fascinates you?
You know, I will put one comment out, but then I'll really talk about the next one. When I first read that question, I will be honest with you, and we talked about this. I am fascinated how police officers are willing to vote for the current Republican Party.
Yeah.
And I'll leave it at that. That constantly fascinates me. But in reality, the real true crime thing that blew me away was when I watched the opioid story on Netflix. And I think it's because of my interest in psychedelics. So I watched that. I was blown away by the greed, by they knew what they were doing, and it had an impact on me. But then last May, I went on an iboga retreat, and iboga is it's one of the strongest psychedelics known that we know. And from iboga comes a one of the alkaloids is called ibogaine. If you've ever heard of ibogaine treatment in other countries, ibogaine treatment is used for opioid addiction, and within 8 hours, it basically impacts the opioid receptors in the brain and takes away the addiction in 8 hours. I would never
Wow.
have believed that. I was on a retreat and saw it happen in real time. A young lady came to the retreat, had a car accident 10 years ago, got addicted to opioids, exactly like that Netflix documentary. Or I'm sorry, it was actually the show. It wasn't even a documentary. It was like the series, the show. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names. I don't know the
That's
name of
okay.
it. And after the first iboga journey, the 8 hour journey, it wasn't fun for her. Don't get me wrong, it was
Yeah.
not fun. She was able to throw her pills down the toilet. Eight
Wow.
hours. And you have people who go into these treatment programs for, 60 days and they come out and it's recurring and they can't get rid of it. And so I saw this happening at this retreat, and it put, this horrible family and what they did with the opioid stuff. And we actually have this chemical that could help so many people. And that substance isn't legal in the
Right.
US. And
Right.
so that's, there you go. My true crime story and iboga, and don't even get me started even more.
Yeah. What do you know? Was the name of that Netflix one? Was it Painkiller? Is that the one you're talking about? It looks
Could
like
have been.
it's
There's two on Netflix. There's one that's like a story arc with Matthew Broderick, and then there's another
yes.
one that's actually a documentary.
Okay. All right. I'll have to find that one. Painkiller is the one with Matthew Broderick. That's
That's
that
the
one.
one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then because I know that there's one on that on the whole family, and now I'm blanking on what it was called.
Right. On
But
like
yeah.
they actually go
Yes.
into I'm not a big documentary watcher, so I'm not surprised I don't remember the name of it. I remember that Matthew Broderick, kind of the fictionalized of it kind of kept me entertained a little
Yeah,
bit more.
yeah.
There is a documentary more on the family specifics, and I
Yeah,
don't remember the name of that.
yeah. I'll have to find it. I'll have to
Sorry.
find that one and post it later. It's all good.
Okay.
Now, have you followed up with that person who had that experience on that trip since then? And has she been able to stay off of everything? Wow.
Yes. Yes. That's what's amazing. She still has the muscle memory of,
Sure.
oh, I need to take a pill. And then she says, no, I don't. She doesn't have the craving. And she's slowly losing the muscle memory
Yeah.
of, that habit.
That's amazing. That really is amazing. Like to have it over that quick. Because that stuff does not play. Yeah.
And what it was interesting, I did not go for addiction. I've been learning about psychedelics. I mean, you're going to be asking me about MDMA. Over the last 8 months, I've been learning about other psychedelics and how they work with trauma, and I wanted to learn about iboga. I did not go with any goal of addiction. But here's what happened. I deleted a ridiculous game off of my phone. I no longer drink Diet Dr. Pepper. Who knew I had an addiction to Diet Dr. Pepper? Like it never occurred to me like one a day, one or two a day. I no longer drink. I don't even buy it. I have no need for it. Um, there was something else. I forget what the other thing. Oh, chocolate. I very rarely need chocolate anymore. And like I was just shocked that the phone one shocked me because that was like a go-to.
Yeah.
So even little addictions that you don't even realize you have.
Right.
So yeah, iboga is pretty interesting as a psychedelic for addiction.
Yeah. And I've never even heard of it. That's another one I've never even heard of. So it's really like this stuff is for me unexplored. So the most exposure I've had to psychedelics is watching Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia. Have you watched that on Hulu? I think.
I don't know. I don't have
Oh,
Hulu. No.
highly recommend if you can. Not that I recommend sailing the high seas, but if you can get it in some way and watch it, Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia is phenomenal.
Okay.
He's like a chemist and he goes through all of these, every episode's focused on a different psychedelic and he goes through all these different things and he'll go and have the experience and talk through it. And it's really fascinating. And it's all these different things that I either will never have the opportunity because they're in an entire other country that I might not ever get to go to. Or they're highly illegal here. And it's like, that's kind of a bummer, but at the same time, like, at least there's this documentary about them, which is really cool. So,
Okay. Is he a kind of a skinny guy?
yes. Yeah.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So
Yeah.
let's get
I've done
into, oh, go
kind
ahead.
of a similar thing the past couple of months, just
Yeah.
going to work with different medicines. But yeah, go
That's
ahead.
really neat. That's really, are you documenting all of that on YouTube? Like what you're going and doing and everything?
No, I did not do it that way. What
Yeah.
I'm going to start doing, the plan right now in October, I was kind of waiting. So one of the things we're going to talk about is that the FDA was set to approve MDMA therapy for PTSD in August, and they delayed approval. And I was shocked. I was really floored for a variety of reasons. But anyway, I was holding off talking about other medicines just because I wanted to keep my content kind of clean. It was just
Sure.
MDMA. I was waiting for approval, da da da. Well, you know what? They're on their own timeline, and I get people all the time asking me about different psychedelics, and
Yeah.
I'm just going to start creating more content probably by the end of October to answer those questions I get about psilocybin, bufo 5-MeO, iboga, cambo, like LSD. I get so many questions from people, so I'm just going to start making the content according
Yeah.
to the questions that get asked.
Yeah, I mean, you could always section that off on your YouTube channel so it appears under a different section too. And then that way you're keeping that clean line at the top and you've got, the other section on, hey, other stuff.
Yep.
So
That's exactly what's going to happen. The different
Yeah.
sections. Yep.
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 And nothing wrong with that. And maybe it'll
Yep.
allow more people to find you and engage with you too. So that's another bonus. All right, so let's get into MDMA therapy because I know like myself, some folks might be unfamiliar or maybe even skeptical about MDMA therapy. So how does that process
Sure.
work? And then if you're going to go into like an MDMA session, what would that look like?
Yeah, so we talked about this. These are two really big questions, so we kind of have to break it up a little bit. So I have a funny feeling your audience totally understands what MDMA is, but just in case, the street name is Ecstasy or Molly. MDMA was synthesized in the early 1900s. It is not your classic psychedelic in that it doesn't create hallucinations. Many people call it an empathogen. It's the drug that people like to use at raves, at parties. It makes you feel good. It's the love drug. It makes you have a lot of compassion for yourself, a lot of compassion for people that are around you. And it has methamphetamine in it, so it is a little bit of, an energy boost, a little bit of speed in there. So it's great as a party drug. As a trauma medicine, what it does is twofold. It increases the amount of serotonin in the brain, serotonin making you feel good. Again, that empathy, that compassion, that willingness to trust and like the people that you're with. Additionally, the amygdala that's in the back of your brain, which is like the fire alarm of the brain, it quiets that. And so for somebody who's experiencing PTSD and their body is kind of in this hyper vigilant fight or flight, think of like when you're really scared and how that feels physically. Maybe you're on the top of a cliff or you're about to publicly speak, and we all know how that feels. That's how a trauma patient feels. In MDMA, that fear in the body is calmed down. So imagine walking in front of that group you're going to speak in front of, or walking on top of that really high ledge, and your body feels as good as like you're hanging out at the beach. So for a trauma patient, it calms everything down and allows you to start to talk about and process things. So that's just like a basis of kind of how the medicine works. The process is like any other medical procedure. I was an English teacher, so I work in percentages that are easy. So think of 40, 20, 40. 40% of the cycle, or think of the medical procedure. It's easiest usually if you think about a surgery. So 40% is like before the surgery. That's where you're preparing. You're talking to your therapist. What are your problems? What's bringing on the PTSD symptoms? What do you want to heal? For me, it was all about fear. I pretty much thought the universe was out to get me. There was no reason to live. I was suicidal. Those were the things to heal. 20% is the actual day of taking the medication. And when I say day, I literally mean day. 5 to 8 hours of the actual medicinal journey. The same way you can be in surgery for like 5 to 8 hours. And then the last 40% is the same way that you're kind of healing from a surgery. Maybe you have to eat certain foods. Maybe you have to go to physical therapy. You definitely have to think about your healing and not do something silly and like rip out your stitches. With psychedelic assisted psychotherapy, the majority of the healing happens after that day. That 40% after that journey day is where the healing happens. It's called integration. That's where you start to see, for my instance, for child abuse, I was getting childhood memories kind of like showing up while walking the dog. When you're in the shower and ideas just come, or you're taking a walk and ideas just come, kind of like that. I would have childhood ideas pop up, suddenly looking at them from an adult perspective. An example, 3-year-old Jill getting beaten up by her 230-pound, 6'2" father. I have this memory come up, literally, of my father beating me. The reframe from a woman in her late 40s is, that wasn't that child's fault. The universe is not against that child. That father was a real jerk. obviously I didn't use jerk at that time.
Right.
So that 40-20-40 is the process. I went through that process 3 times over the course of a year. And at the end of that third process is when I no longer qualified for a PTSD diagnosis, meaning I was no longer suicidal. I was no longer in that fight or flight mode. I still had trauma. I had 19 years of neglect and abuse.
Yeah.
My father was a domestic abuser. My mother was suicidal and depressed her whole life. There was a lot of like lower T trauma to heal that even now I still kind of deal with some stuff. I don't think you ever really leave your childhood behind.
Hmm.
But the PTSD symptoms, I was no longer suicidal. I saw I had a future. I was no longer afraid of the future. On the scale, I no longer qualified for a PTSD diagnosis.
Yeah.
So I just talked a whole lot. What questions did I create?
Yeah. I mean, I feel so. I'm assuming that was your diagnosis just PTSD? Was it CPTSD? Like, is this something that could work for both of those situations?
So at the time, CPTSD wasn't really
Yeah.
popular.
Yeah.
And that's why my book has PTSD.
Mm.
What I'll say to folks is that there is a PTSD actual criteria,
Yes.
and I think that's still being followed. The additional work that I've done with medicine, so after those 3 MDMA sessions, later on, like over the next year and a half, I did 2 psilocybin journeys with my 2 doctors because I wasn't in a PTSD state. I didn't need
Yeah.
MDMA anymore. And then when my doctors actually moved out of the area, I continued to explore my trauma healing with psychedelic tourism. So the complex part, I would say I continue to work on my own. I still
Yeah.
maintain a therapeutic relationship with my therapist. Um, it just wasn't language that was being used at the time. But do I think I had complex? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of difficult sometimes to wrap your head around which one it is. And generally, like childhood trauma is probably going to be classified as complex because it was ongoing for
Complex.
so long. Could
Yeah.
this help things like the aftermath of a car crash or something like that, where it's a
Right.
single event that caused trauma? Is this something that could be applicable there as well?
So that's really some of the interesting research that's going on because the marketing around any psychedelic right now is that everything heals PTSD. UFO, which is the toad venom, which gives you a 15 to 30 minute, very intense psychedelic journey, can heal PTSD. Well, it can if you've been in a horrible car accident and you're terrified of getting into a car. If that's your only issue going into that particular journey, it absolutely can.
Yeah.
And so I think it really does. You hear all the time where veterans had a very stable upbringing. They went into they got trained, they went into battle, they came back, they had some issues. They go overseas, they do a couple of ayahuasca, beautiful shamanic journeys. They come back and they feel a lot better and they can go live their lives much differently. So I think there is a scale. Um, I tend to say to folks, MDMA, in my experience, is phenomenal when your nervous system is completely in disarray. I would not have been able to handle a psilocybin journey or a bufo journey when I was in that PTSD state. I
Yeah.
needed to calm down. And for people who might be, I don't, are all of your listeners, is everybody visual? Like I have my hands on my shoulders because I think my shoulders were up to my ears my entire life.
Hmm.
Um, But if you're not coming from an intense fear of everything, if you can actually identify what you're afraid of, there are other psychedelic experiences that could probably work for you.
Yeah. 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 And I know there's all kinds. Like I was saying earlier, there's all kinds of different things that you can try. Specifically
No.
with MDMA therapy, though, what is a session? Like, what was one of your sessions like whenever you went through that?
Yeah. So whenever you're talking about psychedelic assisted psychotherapy, there's two things that kind of create the baseline, set and setting. Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind, goes into this beautifully. I know you were going to type. We should have mentioned that earlier. I'm
That's
sorry.
okay. It's all
If you
good.
want, if your listeners want a nice history of the psychedelic kind of revolution and kind of a baseline understanding. He did a really great job. And so, why did I mention him? Oh my gosh, I totally just lost my train of thought. What just happened? Michael Pollan, How to Change Your Mind. What was your question? I just
Talking back
lost it.
about what a session of MDMA assisted therapy is.
Oh, set and setting. That's why.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So he does a beautiful job of talking about set and setting. So mindset, what you're doing the session for, and how you feel about it. And do you trust the people that you're with? And the setting, where are you? Are you in a comfortable place? Does it feel safe? Things of that sort. So for me, my sessions were with my two doctors, my therapist and guide. And by the way, my therapist was training to become a psychedelic assisted psychotherapist. My therapy was underground. I fell into it. She just happened to be doing this training. I happened to have a PTSD episode. The worlds collided. Her mentor in her program was the guide for me, and he was a medical doctor at the time. I always like
Okay.
joke I had the Cadillac of therapy. But the mindset was that I had two trusted people. I had a medical doctor and my therapist, and we all knew why I was there and what we needed to achieve. The setting doesn't exist anymore. The building has been demolished, but it was a lovely, lovely little cabin that had multiple seating areas, a beautiful mattress with piled high blankets, because I'm a cuddler. I was allowed to bring anything I wanted to the space, my fluffy socks, my eye mask. There was a little like eating area. It was I wrote in my book, it was like you come in from a snowstorm to a house where like the chocolate chip cookies are being baked, like that kind of feeling. And those two things are important. The mindset, not being scared. I knew who I was going to be with. I knew I could trust these people. And a beautiful, safe place that was quiet, that was away
Yeah.
from the hustle and bustle. Um, that's how the day started. I took my first dose. MDMA therapy protocol is that you get a base dose, and then an hour later, you get the option to have a booster. And this is the MAPS protocol, maps.org. Those are the folks who ran the clinical trials. So that's a standard protocol. And at that point, you are free to talk. You're free to lay down with your eye mask. I think you can tell I'm kind of chatty. I was talking. The people who are with you for a therapeutic journey versus a coaching journey versus recreational. So there's three different kind of things there. When you're talking a therapeutic journey, they are empathetic witnesses. They're allowing the patient to lead, and they only do a little bit of slight pushing back if the patient says anything dangerous. I said, I should never have been born. I don't deserve to be here. Things like that. Gentle pushback, gentle questioning. Is that really right? Things like that. Versus coaching is more like future oriented. What do you want to achieve? Versus recreational. You get to have fun. 5 to 8 hours later, when you come out of the enhanced state, you only remember about 45 minutes of it. When you're doing it therapeutically, take your phone and voice record. Don't video record, the file's too big. Voice record, and you will be amazed at what comes out of your subconscious. You are not slurring your words. The only time that I felt like I was in an enhanced state was when I kind of got up to run to the restroom. But, it was just, I'm old anyway, so getting up too fast causes a head rush. Um, you don't really feel, and I've worked with other people with MDMA, you don't really feel like you're high. You just kind of feel comfortable. And I'll just give one example that it was the first time, that first journey was the first time that I told two people that I was absolutely sure that if my father was in the room, he would have his hands around my neck trying to kill me. And again, in a therapeutic way, they didn't push back. Oh no, he's your father. He would never do that.
Yeah.
They simply listened. And so you would kind of say, well, wait a minute. Well, when does the healing happen? What I like to say is that it seems like the MDMA kind of marinates in your brain. And this is Jill language. This is not research language. Because somehow, after you come out of that enhanced state, the immediate hours and days, weeks, and then it kind of drifts off, you have these memories and these insights that just, it's like a fire in the very beginning, like a campfire, and it kind of slowly dies out. But the real revelations are after. So I would say to anybody, you kind of walk out of the journey kind of disappointed. Like, I thought I'd feel differently. I thought I'd be healed. I thought I'd have all these magical insights. They happen a couple of hours later, and they really start going the next couple of days.
Yeah.
So it's really important to take time off, to give yourself some space. If you go right back to work, you're not giving the neuroplasticity the time to kind of really dive into what needs to happen.
Yeah. So how much time do you recommend people do take off? Days, a week?
I had my journeys on Thursdays. I took off Fridays, and I tried to make it so that I wasn't going back to work. I tried to do like a Friday and a Monday off, so I
Yeah.
wasn't actually going back until Tuesday.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
what I tried to do
Like
more
if there's a
often.
holiday on a Monday, Labor Day or something like that. That way you can kind of take advantage of that and get that extra day. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense.
I did one, yeah, that's what we kind of did around the Christmas holiday. Yeah.
Hmm. Oh, yeah, that's even better.
Mhm.
Extra days. Well, depending on what job you have. Some days you
Depending,
really don't get very much
I
off.
remember I had time. Yeah, because there was like a little bit of a weather issue, and I was like, please, let's do this because I have some time off.
Yeah, yeah. We've got a couple folks who have said hi in the chat. Hello, if you're just joining us, we are here talking about MDMA therapy. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them into the chat, and we'll address them while we're live. So, for those who have maybe some reservations about psychedelics or MDMA, what would you say to kind of demystify MDMA-assisted psychotherapy?
I would say I was right there with them. I was a child of the 80s, Nancy Reagan's commercials with the egg in the frying pan. I was
I
not a
remember
drug
those.
user. Remember, right?
Yeah. This is your
The
brain.
only
This
thing
is your
that
brain
got
on drugs. Yeah.
your brain on
Mhm.
sizzle.
Yep.
Uh, the only thing that got me away from my parents at 19 was my brain. I was not going to mess with it. My mother was clinically depressed her entire life on a variety of antidepressants that never worked. My mother attempted suicide 2 years before she actually died of COPD. So I had zero faith in therapy. I had zero faith in therapeutic treatments. I only went to therapy because I lost my partner of more than 20 years and I needed help dealing with the grief.
Yeah.
That's what actually took me to therapy. So when 18 months after his passing is when I got a work email that was like a level 1, not important, but I flipped out. My whole body flipped out. I had an incredible trauma response that I knew within a month I was going to be poor living on the streets. I actually, my line is that I was going to be living in my car because my car was at a lease. I would at least have my car. And up here, my head knew that wasn't true, but my body was completely flipping out. And so I went back to my therapist, and she's the one who diagnosed me with PTSD. I did not believe her. I was working at Microsoft at the time. I was like, have you met me? I'm corporate girl. I've got my life together. Like, I don't have PTSD. I had a crappy childhood, but lots of people had it worse. I was on the antidepressant Wellbutrin. Couple months into this talk therapy with her, specifically about the PTSD symptoms, I wasn't getting better. And she had me go look at the MAPS clinical trials after she said, look, I'm in this program for psychedelic assisted psychotherapy. And I was like, no, 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 no. She said, look, go look at the clinical research. And basically, that's what I did. At the time, they were done, MAPS.org, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. They had completed their phase 2 clinical trials. And on average, again, I was an English major, so don't pay attention to me with the math. Like on average, 2/3 of the people who went through the trials with treatment-resistant PTSD were no longer qualified to have PTSD at the end of the
Wow.
trials, at the end
Yeah.
of 3 sessions. And I was becoming increasingly suicidal. You can only say to your therapist so many times, if the universe does one more thing, I'm done. I'm out. It wins. And I had all of the dumb questions. Am I going to throw up? Am I going to get sick? Am I going to say stupid stuff? Do I need to wear a diaper? Like, I had every embarrassing question because I didn't have any I realized later I had one experience with ecstasy in my life, but hadn't really connected it. So I would say to anybody who's like, oh no, drugs are bad, da da da. I was right there with you. I looked at the clinical research, and I would just invite everybody to realize that the FDA has made MDMA, psilocybin, which is the ingredient in magic mushrooms, and LSD. All of those compounds have been listed as breakthrough therapy compounds, which what that means is that it moves drug production or drug approval and production faster. So that's why this recent FDA delay kind of surprised me. So even the FDA is looking at these compounds for the fact that they are able to produce mental health benefits that nothing else on the market can do right now. So don't believe me. Go to clinicaltrials.gov, do a search for either psychedelics or for I gave you another link. I'm so sorry.
It's all good.
Clinical,
Don't even. It's all good.
and you'll start to see the clinical trials that are out there. And for folks who are like, wait a minute, this really could be a thing, you can even set up a Google alert to be alerted when individual companies are setting up their trials. There's a company, I just got an alert about it, that is actually looking for folks because they want to do an LSD and depression trial. So don't just believe Jill Sitnick and her story. It's a thing. There's
Yeah.
millions of dollars that have already been invested.
Yeah. And I know sometimes like clinical trials can be really scary, but especially in some cases, they're the thing, if they can get the right amount of people, the right amount of participants and everything, they can really make a huge difference. So if you are willing to be in a clinical trial and this is something that interests you, definitely go give that a look. I mean, that we've tried to get my grandmother, not totally not related to psychedelics or anything, but my grandma into so many dementia clinical trials. And it's like, because if her experience can help someone else and potentially help her as well, you kind of want that. And if it's possible, I'm all for clinical trials. So that website is now in there. So go check it out if you want. If you're interested and you would like to, go check it out.
Well, and it also verifies when you do a search for psychedelics and you see that there are over 100
Yeah.
clinical trials, you're kind of like, oh, this isn't new. Just because the media hasn't reported it, like, oh no, this is really going on. So that's what I would say to folks. Keep an open mind and do a search. You'll be kind of surprised at what's happening.
Yeah, yeah. Now you mentioned kind of the therapeutic pushes during these sessions, right? So how does MDMA therapy, how does the therapy during those sessions, how does it differ from traditional forms of therapy that you've tried before or since?
So the difference between your traditional talk therapy versus how guides and therapists act in an MDMA session, very different. When you're in an enhanced state, your subconscious is kind of wide open and very, very open to suggestion and very open to leading. So, for instance, if you're in a talk therapy session and oh my gosh, I wish I could come up with a real life example. I'm just gonna make this up. I might turn around and say, I'm just really, really ugly. I just can't believe I'm really, really ugly. Well, in a talk therapy session, my therapist might be like, well, so let's talk about this. What makes you think that you're really ugly? Oh my gosh, my hair, my nose, da da da. See, well, like when did you start feeling that you were ugly? Do you see what I'm saying? Like some open-ended
Yeah.
questions. In an MDMA session, In MDMA session, I'm just so ugly. Hmm. Oh my gosh, I mean, I just can't even step out the door. Hmm. So there's an empathetic witnessing. And what that means, one of the things that causes trauma, and one of the reasons why trauma can sometimes be so hard to define, is because trauma is very different for each person, because it comes down to not being able to heal a certain emotion at a certain time. So you and I could both experience a horrendous car accident. You can go home to very supportive parents who can hug you and tell you you're safe and support you through your tears and give you what you need emotionally in the days and the weeks to deal with that. I could go home and not have that support, be told, stop crying. What are you talking about? It's done. Get over it. I'm probably going to hold on to that fear in my body, whereas you're
Yeah.
not.
Right.
Okay. When you're in that MDMA session, and let's use that car example, and I talk about how frightening it is to, be in cars, and I might start talking about that accident. Those two people, my therapist and guide, are kind of acting as proxies to the support that I should have gotten at the time. They don't have to respond. They don't have to hold my hand. They don't have to hug me. They don't have to talk to me because I'm in
Yeah.
this enhanced state. It's just the fact that they're there. It's just the fact that I feel safe with them. And it's why MDMA on its own doesn't just heal trauma. It's that other person is there to provide safety. Does that make sense?
It does. Now, so let's say that you're in this session and you're not talking about anything related to your trauma. Does someone like try to help you get to that, or it's just whatever you want to talk about the sky for 8 hours, you talk about the sky for 8 hours?
Oh my gosh. So my first journey, there was a little bit of very specific, I don't deserve to be here, that kind of stuff. And oddly enough, the integration really had nothing to do with that stuff. So I thought, being Miss Type A, I'm going to hack the second one. No, I know this works. I'm going to hack it. I'm going to stay awake. I'm going to understand how this works. Don't do that, folks. Don't do that.
I'm laughing because
Um,
this sounds like something I would try.
oh my gosh. I was like, I'm going to get 3 times the healing power off of my second MDMA journey.
Gonna get that gold star, that
So,
A plus plus. Yeah.
right? Right. Don't do that. What wound up happening with me trying to be more aware, all I was aware of was all the stuff I was talking about. And what wound up happening was that I was talking about trying to buy a house. I was talking about work stuff. I was almost like talking like I was with my girlfriends. There was no trauma stuff that came up. It was, stuff with my boyfriend and da da da. When I listened to the recording later, I was like, yeah, where's all the trauma stuff? Sure enough, sure enough, the day after, like a wave, a bunch of healing happened. So yeah, it is a really, really interesting. I'm not going to say there's zero correlation as to what happens during the session to the healing after. There has to be some sort of correlation, but I wouldn't say to anybody really try to focus on making some specific connection. Let the client or the client or the patient basically leads the session because it's his or her subconscious that is bringing this stuff up for a reason. We might not know it at the time, but in a day or two or a week or 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to know why.
Yeah. And I know that you've also said that intention setting is really, really crucial for psychedelic therapy. And that's kind of what we're talking about, right? Like your intention with that second session was to do it the right way. But can you explain why,
More
especially
fear.
given that example, why is it important that someone should set an intention for healing for these sessions?
Yeah, well, so psychedelics are not a guarantee
Right.
that you can actually get to the trauma. My therapist likes to say that we are all children wrapped in layers, and it takes, in my opinion, it can take a lot to get through those layers.
Sure.
And so and I've seen this with folks, if you aren't willing to kind of even start in a regular therapy session to start drilling through the top couple of layers and to start figuring out what's what's motivating me to act this way? Why am I so scared? What is my body telling me? Oh, I really am still scared of my father. Well, that's ridiculous. Well, he has passed now, but at the time he was in Florida. I'm a grown woman. There's a cop up the street. Why am I still scared of my father? If you aren't willing to drill a little bit and identify what your intentions are, um, it's less likely that your subconscious will be willing to kind of give up some of that information.
Okay.
There's no guarantee with psychedelics that you'll get. I mean, it took me 3 sessions to even get to the real reason I was scared. I had this internal feeling that I was like stuck in the childhood house where my mother shot herself. Like it took that long and that scary. So yeah, you really do need to kind of prime the pump. You need to um, prepare yourself. And if you're so scared by your trauma, if you don't feel safe enough to even do that, then you're not ready for a psychedelic session yet. Stick to the talk therapy, get yourself there.
Yeah.
Because you'll
Yeah.
waste your time. You'll waste your time, or you might have a bad experience. There are some
Right.
people that have so much trauma that they've either shut down, they've disassociated so that the psychedelic has zero effect, or they come up with some really terrifying. There's some people who have repressed memories. There's some people who have some horrible memories that come up during the session. I remembered all my stuff. um, but there can be some really scary things for some folks. I've heard some other accounts. So you really got to prime the pump and be ready so you're not caught off guard.
Yeah. And is intention setting, is that something that your therapist or your guide will help you with? Like, is that something that generally is not, maybe not a must, but something that they're going to kind of prep with you?
Oh, I would say it's a must.
Mm.
Oh, no, let's get really specific. I mean, I'm not here to give medical information. Whenever, even to this day, when I do psychedelic journeys, even the ones at home where I'm just clearing out the cobwebs, I have intentions. I wrote an intention setting workbook. Um, if you go to my website, the body prompt is free on my website because that's the one my therapist and I used the most. And it's literally just listening to your body or talking to your body. So like I always have this pain right here in my neck. And when my therapist and I started kind of talking, I'd be like, oh, my neck. Da, da, da. And my therapist said, well, okay, let's figure out what your neck is saying. And I was like, oh, well, I'm stressed. And she's like, well, let's talk to your neck. Let's find out. It went back. As soon as I kind of focused on my neck, I had this memory of when I was 10, I had just gotten beaten by my father. So your body can help you identify, I just got beaten by my father. I feel trapped. I feel scared. That's a beautiful way to set an intention of, I would like to release that fear. I would like to release that feeling of feeling trapped, because my body is telling me as a 40, at the time I was my late 40s, I still feel that way, and there's no reason to feel that way.
Yeah.
So I'm a very strong believer in intention setting. And if you're working with someone who is not helping you with that, in my opinion, you're not working with a qualified person.
Yeah. So how do you know if you are working with a qualified person? Is there something that says like, watch for these 6 things, and if they don't do them, then they're not, you need to find another one? Or is there any guide like
Well,
that?
the challenge right now, I'm actually probably going to be creating that content. The challenge right now is that since everything's underground, obviously there's no
Yeah.
regulation. What I say to people is that, the barrier to entry right now to this therapy is finding somebody that you like, you want to work with. The very same criteria that you would hold a medical doctor to or a therapist to is the same criteria you should hold anybody you're going to work with to. And like, don't let anything slide just because this is underground. So there should be appointments that are set. There should be, I would be surprised if you'd be able to get references, but you should be able to get a history of like a work history from this person. How many people has this person worked with? What medicines has this person worked with? What is the preferred client for this person? If you have a PTSD issue, has this person worked with PTSD? Does this person have a therapeutic background or a coaching background, or just did like 3 mushroom trips in their backyard and thinks they can save the world? The same way you would vet a doctor by kind of looking on the walls and seeing how many degrees they have and doing a Google search, ask all the questions, and really be true to yourself. If you're someone that needs a schedule, like, have a schedule. If you're someone who needs a phone number, have a phone number. Like, don't treat this as some like illegal activity that you have to be, this is your healing. And just because it
Yeah.
happens to be underground, treat it with the seriousness that it is, because it's your mental health. Does that help?
It does. It does. I mean,
The
and
common sense stuff.
right, right. And it's very similar. You're right. It's very similar to what you would watch for kind of red flags in a mental health practitioner to begin with. You want to make sure that you are with someone who knows what they're doing and all of that. And it is a little harder whenever it's not something that is strictly on the up and up everywhere that you go. That makes it a little bit harder. But
A little harder,
if you're
absolutely.
in the right circles, you can find the right people. So you'll hopefully be able to find some of that if this is something that interests you.
Well, and that's the other thing. This is not a solution if you're in crisis.
Yeah.
If you're in crisis, you go the regular route. This is something where you need to join a couple of communities. You need to learn about different people.
Yeah.
You might need to interview a couple of people. This is not you just pick the first person you're given, unless that person's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Unless they happen to be really, really good.
Right.
You've talked a lot about these very intense emotional experiences, even in the days following. And you talked about, taking the days off and everything. How do you balance those kinds of intense emotional things in the aftermath of a session with the day to day life afterward, especially if it's happening while you're at work in the days afterward? How do you balance that?
Oh, yeah, no, I didn't really find. I found that as long as I took the time every day to focus, I was absolutely able to separate.
Okay.
So I was a big dog walker. I'm not a meditator. I'm a action meditator. I like to walk and think. So walking the dog became my integration. I would record on my phone. I would get home and I would immediately journal. I was an English major, so I like to write. That's kind of
Yeah.
my thing. I would always encourage people journal or voice record because the insights come so fast that you forget them. I know that sounds crazy, but you really do. Um, I would also say that at work, I remember at the time I had a coworker who was really on my nerves, and it was a phenomenal opportunity to understand why I was being triggered so much. And it related right back to my mother. And so if you're going through something at work that is really triggering, and you've just gone through some psychedelic assisted psychotherapy, it's a beautiful opportunity to investigate that and really understand the source. And as soon as I understood the source, all of a sudden I was just able to kind of compartmentalize that
Yeah.
coworker and be like, oh yeah, no, that's my mother's behavior. I know where you're going. Yeah, no. So
Yeah.
yeah, it never like overwhelmed me that I couldn't work. I was absolutely able to separate.
How much time would you say you set aside each day to kind of go through this?
Well, Doggy was kind of young at the time. We had to walk. She was a terrier.
Yeah.
We had to do a solid mile, mile and a half. So yeah, it was a good 45-minute walk a day on average. Uh, and just, letting your mind go. And then the journaling.
Yeah.
So yeah, probably throughout the day on average,
Couple
half an hour to
hours.
an
Yeah.
hour. Um, but don't pay attention to my timeline.
Yeah.
Pay attention to your own. And weekends were probably a little bit more just because I was able to relax and focus more. Um, but I wouldn't let working scare anybody. It's definitely something you can compartmentalize. In fact, you can compartmentalize it too much. Again, if you don't spend the time, you're kind of wasting that neuroplasticity. Um, so yeah, make sure you've got some time to be able to work on it, and you're not going back into an environment that created the trauma. It's
Right.
also super important.
Right. That I'm glad that you said that because for a long time I was in an abusive marriage and it was one of those things. I was in therapy towards the end and it was very much like my therapist and I went through a lot of shit together and I'm so grateful for her. But every day I would like go back to what I was experiencing and before I had really named for myself that it was a traumatic situation, that I was in an abusive situation, that was really difficult because it was like, okay, we can talk about all this stuff in therapy. We can go through all of these different things. And then I can't put any of it into practice. And I'm glad that you said that because if you're in a situation like that and you are actively trying to heal, like it probably is more important to be focused on your safety plan, to be focused on what you can do in the moment rather than saying like I'm ready to start healing from this when you can't get out of the situation just yet. So I'm really glad that you said that. I don't think I would have thought to throw that out there.
Yeah, you don't want your neuroplasticity. You don't want your subconscious to kind of be opened up. I mean, psychedelics basically allow you to create new neural pathways. You get to think differently. You get to create new behaviors, new patterns. You don't want that open neuroplasticity and then to go into a bad situation. You're just going to make the bad patterns and the the you want to create bad patterns, go into those bad situations.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good way to put it. Like put yourself in the situation that you want more of, kind of.
Yes,
Instead
especially in
of.
the very, very beginning. Yeah, because
Yeah.
you're literally, we all learn when we really like a good, when did we learn? When we had a fun teacher that we liked. When did we not learn? When we hated the teacher.
Yeah.
After a psychedelic session, don't go into the situation with the teacher that you hated.
Good point.
Yeah.
We've talked about your YouTube channel a little bit, and I know it's the Journey Sage, and you've got practical wisdom on integration practices and everything there. Can you share some kind of key strategies that you recommend frequently or that you find people engaging the most with for those undergoing psychedelic therapy?
It really varies for what people like to do. In the work, it was funny because I was interviewing people a little bit, like my friends. I was like, because I was making the workbook, and I was like, not everybody likes to journal,
True.
even though I love to journal, and not everybody is techie and wants to put their, voice to text, which goes to the cloud and da da da. You know what I was really surprised about? Some of my friends were like, I like to draw. I like to draw out my journeys, music, dance. Me, I like walking. Here's what I'll say to folks. Whatever you really, some people yoga, whatever you really like to do, just make sure that you plan to do that. For me, I have a digital journal because I type faster than I write. Um, that's what I really like to do. Sometimes I do actually draw something out on paper, but most of the time I'm actually using words. So my advice to people is do whatever you love to do, and in some way, shape, or form, make sure you record the biggest insights. And I'm sorry, that might require some writing. Um, you will be amazed at the progress that you make that you won't even realize you're making until like 6 months later. You're going to look back and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I even thought that way. Super, super. I'm working with somebody right now, and this person's integration is phenomenal. This person is making leaps and bounds, and this person doesn't see it right now. This person is still in the life sucks and da da da, and yet I'm seeing these leaps and bounds that this person can't see right now. But in 6 months, this person's going to look back and be like, oh my gosh, you're right, I really did make progress. So somehow keep track, but also do what you love.
Mhm. I like that you brought up the like you can see it more than the person who's living it can see it. I think that that's really a common thing with therapy in general. Just like the things that you're, or even just the people around you, whether it's therapy or just like the people around you can see some changes that maybe you haven't noticed yet. Because you're in it every day. You're the one living it, and it's hard to
Too
say
close
like,
to it.
yeah, I live this every day and nothing has changed. And it's like, okay, but for someone who hasn't seen you in a month, you've changed a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even just a different way of thinking when all of a sudden you're like, how when you finally hear the lyrics to a song that you were singing wrong your whole life and you can't unhear it? It's kind of like that. Like, oh my gosh, I really did think that way. And then you eventually kind of forget that you actually did think that way, that you really did sing the song the other way. You kind of forget. And so documenting it is super important.
Yeah. That this is not related to anything besides getting lyrics wrong whatsoever.
Oh,
But you might remember this commercial. There was a commercial at one point for some when it was new to have like this your car or your phone or something able to listen and identify a song. So this would have been like
oh,
2000s or something. But they were playing the Pour Some Sugar on Me song in the car, and the
uh-huh.
guy sings Pour Some Soup Upon Me, and the girl like turns off the radio and says, "What did you just say?"
What did you?
And they have this whole conversation, and then it must have been on her phone or something. She pulls it up and says, "Listen to this song. What song is this? Now show me the lyrics." And it was anyway. I think of that whenever people talk about getting lyrics wrong. I think of the "Pour Some Soup Upon Me" commercial.
Pour some soup on. Oh my gosh. See what you've just done.
Now it's in
See
your
what you
head.
just.
Sorry. My head is half lyrics, so it is
There
what
you
it
go.
is.
There you go. Yep. Yep. See, we need to write this down. No, but anyway, yeah. This is exactly my point. Just proved my point. Yep.
Well, I'll bring us back to psychedelics. I know that there's still stigma around the use of psychedelics, especially when it comes to mental health treatment. What do you think
Sure.
needs to change in society generally for psychedelic therapy to become more accepted?
The press needs to not be so clickbaity, because it's a heck of a lot more
Yeah.
fun for them to write bad headlines than it is for them to write positive headlines. The Unfortunately, so we are not an anti-drug society in the US. If you think about the fact that cigarettes and alcohol, which are both addictive and both have dangerous qualities, and neither one actually has any beneficial use, but they're both legal and not Schedule One, and
Yep.
yet these other substances that had a lot of research going into the up to the 1970s and 80s when they were suddenly Schedule One due to the war on drugs. Um, we are not anti-drug. We are drugs as per the biggest lobby.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
so yeah. So what I think is going to happen, this is my guess. We have a lot of private companies that are actively working on their own psychedelic compound. So you can't patent a magic mushroom, but you can patent a certain form of psilocybin or a way that like a patch. You can
Yeah.
patent a what's it called, like a transfer. Oh shucks, you can patent a way to give a drug. So what you're going to have, what I think is going to happen, if I had a crystal ball, what I think is going to happen is you're going to have a lot of companies who have their clinical trials. They're drug companies, so they've got the money. They do their clinical trials. We know they're going to find positive results because the clinical trials have already happened, but they're going to be very focused on their thing. And they are going to wage the PR campaign, and they are going to wage the lobbying campaign, and then we're going to see the different kinds of headlines from the press. And then we're going to see some differences in public opinion. That's how I think it's going to go.
Yeah. That's I hate lobbyists. I hate that we rely on lobbyists so much because I do think that the right things are not prioritized. The things that are going to be most helpful are not prioritized. It's all about the money, and
Yes.
that's it. Um,
We really need to take the money out of politics.
we really
Yeah.
do. We really do. It's yeah. That's a whole other podcast, I'm sure.
Whole other conversation. But that's what I mean, it would be lovely if, the press would actually start reporting on the clinical trials that have been happening and start to, but they don't you get way more clicks if you say something negative than positive. So,
Yeah.
I think it's going to need a lot of PR and a lot of money, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
And who has that money? Drug companies.
Yep. Yeah. And they have to, as long as they can see that there's a market for it, that's what they'll put the money towards, for sure.
Oh, there's an estimated $1 billion market within the next 5 to 10 years.
Wow.
Yes. And if you look at ketamine, which is legal, and the number of ketamine services in the US, and even just medical marijuana, I mean, the potential for investing and where psychedelics are going, billions.
Yeah. Ketamine's gotten a lot of airtime lately. I'm hearing more and more about that uh
Yep,
on the news and everything in a positive way.
yep.
So,
Positive and negative. The doctor abuse of Matthew Perry, I think, has been good in a way in that, we need to really regulate stuff and not have
yeah.
doctors do that kind of behavior.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
In your memoir, Rescuing Jill, you provide a very raw account of your healing process. And you talked about writing and how much you like journaling and all of that. So, how did writing impact your recovery and mental health?
Oh my gosh. For me, just with the way that I am, it was it was the outlet. So in the book, so by the way, if you are a survivor of child abuse, you'll understand the book. If you are not a survivor of child abuse, you will find the book repetitive and boring.
Noted.
You'll you'll find some of it like kind of like jaw-dropping is what I've heard, but then you'll be like, Jill, you talk about the same stuff over and over again. And that's the important thing. The writing, there were times where I would have a childhood memory come up and I would journal about it, no exaggeration, 10, 15, 20 times. Sometimes 2 or 3 times in the same day. I would just come
Wow.
back to the same theme. I didn't understand at the time, and one of the things I want to talk about in my channel when I'm kind of thinking about where my content's going is that, when people talk about psychedelics, they make this analogy that imagine a ski slope that's got a lot of grooves in it from skiers, and psychedelics are like a blizzard that just kind of make a beautiful new canvas, and skiers come down and they make new grooves. That's really just another way of saying neuroplasticity. You have the opportunity with psychedelics to literally grow new neural connections. Well, the way that we grow new neural connections at a very basic level is repetition. That's why we use flashcards when we're in school. That's why we study. That's why we go over things. That's why we make connections. So when you're doing when you're doing psychedelics for therapeutic use, be prepared to repeat and go over your thoughts and think about them over and over again. And for me, it evidenced itself a lot in my journals, and you can see a progression. And I think there's actually one part in the book where I was like thinking about my father, and it went from like, he's such a blankety blank. Oh my gosh, how did he get to be such a blankety blank? He never talked about his childhood. It must not have been very good. Oh my gosh, I feel pretty bad for him. I don't think he was ever loved.
Wow.
Like I went from, I hate him, he's awful, to having empathy, and I could see the progression in my journals, but no exaggeration. 15, 20, 25 times going through that. And so that's what, don't shy away from the repetition. It's part of the process. For me, journaling did it, but for whatever people need, don't shy away from it. That's part of the process. You're building the new neural pathways.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of do the same thing in therapy as well. Like you might talk about something 15, 20 times before finally whatever it is really kind of clicks in. And it was that way for me with a lot of different things I was in therapy for. And it was just like, okay, we're going to talk about this again. And not once did my therapist say, like, you've already talked about this today 3 times.
I wish I wish I had understood the neuroplasticity part of psychedelics back then, because I really beat myself up. I really thought I was stupid. I thought I was like the dumbest person on the planet, that like, why wasn't this happening faster? Why? I didn't understand it was actually the process. And I
Yeah.
kind of want to share that with people so that they understand. Because the other thing with psychedelic, the marketing, I'm gonna be winking at you. I guarantee the marketing is going to be like, just take this pill,
Oh, yeah.
10 years of therapy in 5 hours. No, it's not really the way it works.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Once it's widely available and there are those commercials with the D&D town names, which is what we always say the medical things are. It's like, "Oh, that's a D&D town name. Oh, that's an NPC name for sure." Yeah, it's going to be all like, "Oh, I took this pill and within a week my family noticed I was completely
Right,
different." You know.
right. Yeah.
Okay,
And that's
sure.
really not the way it works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You got to put in the work. All right, well, we are coming up on the last few questions. So if anyone in chat has anything else they would like to ask, make sure that you get it in there. And I know that Bite Mark would like to know, what is your favorite poem?
The Road Less Taken. I cannot recite it, but this isn't a poem, but it plays on that thought. It's if the path you're on is clear, it's probably somebody else's. So Frost's the path least taken. I'm messing that up. I'm totally messing up, but I think you know the poem I'm talking about.
The Road Not Taken. That's the right one. Yeah.
The road not taken, the path not taken. Yeah, that's I've always gone the other way.
Mhm. And that's a beautiful poem. I really like that one a lot.
Yeah.
What is your favorite life hack? Oh, and you told me ahead of time. You're like, okay, you can have travel or you can have food. So I'm going to pick travel. But if you want to share both of
Oh,
them, share both of them.
okay. All right. So my travel hack, and don't get angry with me, it's a Mac hack. There's got to be a PC hack. So there's got to be. So on Mac, you have the Notebook app. There's got to be Notebook on the PC. What I do when I'm traveling is I open up a new note and I throw everything in there. I throw in my flights, I throw in my travel insurance, I throw in my hotel, I throw every single um, phone number, I throw in the weather, I throw every single thing in there. And I know it sounds ridiculously OCD, but when you get into a jam and
Yeah.
you need to find information fast, it is so much better than, oh my gosh, that's in my email somewhere. And like searching Gmail in like the middle of an airport when you need to have a confirmation number or something. Oh my gosh. So I don't know if that helps anybody else, but that has saved my bacon several times.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you could put that in like OneNote, or you could put it in the notepad on Windows. I use an app called TripIt, which you can then download your
Oh,
plans so that they're offline as well. And that
there
that
you
has
go.
been a lifesaver multiple times if I'm traveling in another country and like I don't have Wi-Fi in that country or whatever. It's like, no, I have all my
Right.
information right here. Like everything is here. It's all in order of that I'm going to do
Yes.
it and all that. So, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Passport picture,
Yep, put
your extra
everything.
ID. Like have
I'm with you.
whatever you use, have everything in one place.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
super. And I never did that before. And then I ran into a problem and was like, oh yeah, never again. Everything's gonna be in one place.
Yeah, yeah. Would you like to share your cooking one as well?
Oh my gosh, this is the most ridiculous one. Okay. So I like grapes. I get grapes every week. If you wash your grapes and then you take a bunch of grapes and you put it in a towel and fold the towel over and you rub your grapes, they all come off of the stems.
Oh, interesting. That's like shaking your garlic in a jar to get it peeled off. I like
So
that. And
I
my
sit
kids
there,
eat grapes all the time. So that's good. I'll have them
I
try
mean, how
that.
lazy am I that like I don't want to pick my grapes off all
That's
the time, but
okay.
like yeah, I do that like every Sunday when I go food shopping and then throughout the week I just grab some grapes.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. Listen, it might save my kids. Not that I care if it saves my kids some time. But if they've already done it for the week, it's easier for me to just go grab some of their grapes.
There you go. No pulling off stems and they fall off and this and that the other thing.
Yep, yep.
Oh,
Or
see,
I
one
know
really
he's
likes. Yep.
he's like, I want all the grapes. Not that he would eat
Uh,
grapes, because he definitely would just sniff at them, and then that would be it.
The other one is if you're doing corn on the cob, literally put the entire corn on the cob unhusked right in the microwave for 4 minutes. Take it out, chop it off, pop out the corn on the cob. Don't have to worry about string. Beautiful.
Interesting. And it is like peak corn season right now. So, oh,
Telling you, YouTube it.
unfortunately, I think
Didn't
my
believe it until I tried it.
this has officially died. This usually lights up. It's unfortunate that it is not lighting up. That's a
Oh,
bummer. I'll have to see if it's broken or if it just needs new batteries. Well, if you could have a magic wand and eliminate one common opinion, theory, or misconception about mental health, what would it be?
um, I wish I had something. I would, I would, uh, I would get rid of the misconception that you can just get over something. Just get over it. No, that's not the way our bodies work. That's not the way our
Yeah.
bodies are designed to work. Our bodies are designed to release trauma with the help of others. We simply don't get over things. If it looks like someone simply got over something, it means they're covering up and they're burying it.
Yeah. Yeah. That
Yeah.
that's such a good one, because you don't just it doesn't just go away.
No,
There's work
no,
that
you
you
can
have to
hide
do.
it,
Yeah.
but it doesn't go
Yeah.
no,
That's a great one.
until it's healed. It'll go away once it's healed, but you can't just get over something without healing it.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to share your socials one more time. So again, if you are looking to connect with Jill, here are some ways that you can do that. I'm going to put them into the chat so that you can find those. And I will also put the link to your book as well. But Jill, if there's anything that we didn't talk about or resources you want to throw out there, I'll just give the floor to you while I share these one more time.
No, I think the important ones were maps.org for the clinical trial information. For those of so MAPS does primarily the PTSD work, but they have branched out. They've got a lot of other clinical trials too. If you're looking at the depression and anxiety clinical trials, Johns Hopkins for psilocybin is a phenomenal resource. Berkeley is doing a bunch of stuff too. If you do a search for psychedelics in Berkeley, there's a beautiful newsletter that they have. Michael Pollan is a part of that group. I think if you start with those internet searches, you'll start to get some more information. And believe it or not, you will find some phenomenal information on LinkedIn. I know LinkedIn is often made fun of, yet when you're looking for the psychedelic community and legitimate ways of healing and programs and people to talk to, LinkedIn is a surprisingly fertile place to find legitimate people.
I would not have thought about LinkedIn. Yeah, I would not have thought about LinkedIn for that. That's interesting.
Yeah. There's a really strong community on LinkedIn, and it's, it's not, how do I say this? It's not the stereotypical psychedelic language. It's the language that you and I just used. It's clinical language, it's research language, it's therapeutic language, it's very adult. It's maybe not where I would go to technically find a therapist, but it would definitely be somewhere that I would go to start creating community and asking around.
Yeah, I like that. It's a great way. I mean, that's how social media should be used in general. So it's not there. We were talking about this before we were streaming, but some social media is less helpful.
We were having that conversation. Yes.
Some of them are just annoying.
Some of them are just a little too extra.
Yes, very, very much. Yeah. Well, Jill, thank you so much for joining and for spending this time with us this evening. This was a great conversation. I appreciate you just being here with us.
This was lovely. Thank you so much. I hope I answered all the questions.
Yeah, I think you did. And that wraps up today's episode of Even Tacos Fall Apart. I want to thank Jill for joining me and sharing her incredible journey with MDMA-assisted therapy. Her openness and willingness to discuss something that can feel so misunderstood really brings a lot of clarity and inspiration. One of the things that stood out to me from our conversation was how Jill emphasized the importance of creating safety in your healing process, whether that's through finding the right therapist, setting up your environment, or even the people you surround yourself with. That's not just exclusive to MDMA therapy. It's something we can all take into our everyday lives. When we're working through tough stuff, having a safe space and trusted people to lean on makes all the difference. Jill also reminded us that healing isn't linear, it isn't instant, and it isn't one size fits all. Whether it's trauma, grief, or something else, we don't just snap out of it. It's okay to take your time, explore different options, and trust the process, even when it feels messy or slow. If today's episode got you thinking or made you curious about MDMA-assisted therapy or other treatments, I encourage you to keep learning. Check out the links we talked about, explore credible resources, and take small steps towards whatever healing looks like for you. Before we go, I want to thank you for being a part of this community. Your support means everything to me, and it helps keep these conversations going. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and leave a review. It's such an easy way to help the show grow and reach more people who might need these conversations in their lives. Also, don't forget to share the episode with someone who might find it helpful. A friend, a coworker, or even a cousin who always has a podcast recommendation for you. And if you want to keep the conversation going, connect with me on social media. Again, I'm MommaFoxFire everywhere. Or you can check out tacosfallapart.com. I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's topic, your takeaways, or even what you'd like to hear in future episodes. Thanks again for spending your time with me today. Remember, healing is a journey, not a destination, and you're doing a lot better than you might think. Take care, and I'll see you next time on Even Tacos Fall Apart.